We have been through this seminar, webinar, which we are organizing during this period of COVID, and now we are on to the third day of the program. And we have had very eminent speakers during our sessions here, sharing their thoughts regarding various zoonotic diseases all over the country and all over the world as such. Today, we have with us a very eminent personality, especially on viral diseases, Dr. Kiran Biligaonkar, who is speaking to us on Japanese encephalitis. And this is again an area which requires serious introspections with regard to prevention, control, and other strategies which need to be adopted by the country as such. And Kerala is also one of the states which is frequently being reporting these conditions, and as such we look forward to certain strategies which could evolve, especially all over the country, looking at the ecological and the geographical settings in each of these states, probably which could have a bearing on how we plan and pan out our prevention and control strategies. Sir, welcome to this program, and looking forward to hear your thoughts on this. I also welcome my friends Dr. Jaspir and Dr. Daka for chairing and co-chairing this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I invite Dr. Justin Davis, Assistant Professor, Kerala Veterinary and Animal Science University, to introduce our speaker.
Currently working as Principal Scientist, IVRI, Pune. His field of specialization include veterinary, public health, food safety, and zoonosis. He had developed technologies like recombinant antigen-based whole virus antigen ELISA for Japanese encephalitis in pig, and which is validated by RT-PCR and RT-qPCR. He also developed RT-PCR and RT-qPCR for detection and genotyping of human and animal rotaviruses. He developed PCR assays for rapid detection of pathogens from foods like Listeria monocytogenes, Salmonella, Aeromonas, Clostridium perfringens, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, and virotoxic E. coli. Shelf life extension and growth inhibition of pathogens in meat by using lactic acid, acetic acid, propionic acid, lysine, sodium lactate, sodium pyrophosphate, and biopreservatives, chitosan, and essential oil from spices. He developed immunoassays and PCR assays for detection of meat adulteration. He also bagged a lot of national and international awards, including Punjab Rao Krishi Vidyapeeth Merit Scholarship, received Bombay Veterinary College Diamond Jubilee Commemoration Prize, received gold medal from Konkan Krishi Vidyapeeth, received Poonawalla Gold Medal for Best All-Round Postgraduate Student, received award from Jawaharlal Nehru Memorial Fund, New Delhi, received Scroll of Honor and citation for Best Research Article from Veterinarian Association, Konkan Krishi Vidyapeeth, Best Research Paper Award in Alpha Level Symposium Contest organized on the eve of 10th International Symposium on Healthy Animals, Safe Food, Healthy Man, held in Stockholm, Sweden. Recipient of Senior Research Fellowship during PhD, and he received Young Scientist Award for 2 consecutive years from 2002 to 3 during annual conferences of Indian Association of Veterinary Public Health. With these few words, I am welcoming Dr. Kiran. Hello.
Yes.
Hello, Dr. Kiran and Biligaonkar, Principal Scientist, IVRI Pune, to this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Justin. Now I welcome Dr. Jasbir Singh Bedi and Dr. Pankaj Deka to chair this particular session, and I am handing over to the session to Dr. Jasbir Singh Bedi. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Irshad. First of all, a very good morning and greetings from Ludhiana, Gadwasu, Punjab. And at the outset, I would like to say thanks to the Vice Chancellor of K. Vasu, then President of IVA, President of AMST, other officials of the university, organizing committee members for organizing such wonderful scientific event of 3 days duration in the form of virtual gathering in this period of COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm also thankful that they have given me an opportunity to become a part of this webinar. And I congratulate the organizing members that they have selected this highly relevant theme, which is human-animal environment interface, recent approaches for containing the global zoonotic burden. So as we can see that during the last 2 or 3 decades, there has been immensely increase in the burden of global zoonotic diseases throughout the world, not in India even. And right now, even we are combating with the COVID-19 pandemic, and we are struggling to find out the solutions how to combat this COVID-19 pandemic. And in this session, we have an eminent speaker, Dr. Kiran, and he doesn't need any introduction. He's one of the pioneer scientists and torch bearer of the veterinary public health in India. And sir, we are fortunate enough that you are among us as an expert speaker on the topic of epidemiology of Japanese encephalitis in India. And I would consider that J is one of the important neglected zoonotic disease in India, which was mainly endemic in the eastern part of India, particularly Bihar and UP. But now it is expanding its horizon in other parts of rest of India. So it's a very, I think it's a very relevant act that we can hear about the epidemiology of this disease in India. So without taking much time, I request, first of all the participants to take maximum opportunity of Dr. Kiran sir expertise during this technical session. And talk on the topic of epidemiology.
Okay, right. Thank you, Dr. Bedi and Dr. Pankaj. Thanks to organizers for giving this opportunity to talk to you on this occasion of World Zoonosis Day, and which you have organized a fantastic international symposium or international webinar series. So thank you for giving this opportunity. So as Dr. Bedi was telling you, and as well as Dr. Sunil, that Japanese encephalitis is a very important disease, and I would say that it is an established disease, a re-emerging disease, as well as an emerging disease, depending on the areas, depending on the situation where it is occurring. So in India, we see all 3 types of occurrences of this disease. So is it moving?
Sir, please click on slide and then move, try to move. Just you click the PPT, then next button.
Okay, click on PPT and then next button.
Sir, it is not moving.
Yeah, it is not moving. Let me see, just a minute. Again, I will just try to. Okay. Now it's okay. Is it moving now?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah. So in my presentation, I would be just briefly touching upon the introductory aspect of Japanese encephalitis, its geographical distribution, history, and then going on to epidemiology, what all different determinants which are playing role in the epidemiology, and then what is the status in India, and then finally a couple of slides on prevention and control. So moving on to history, it's a very, very old disease, right? In 1870s, it was first reported in Japan, so named Japanese encephalitis. It was initially called JBE, then later on that name went off, and then in India also it has a very long history. It entered into India from southern part of India, and the first reports they came from Vellore and Pondicherry in 1955. It remained in South India for almost 2 decades, and then later on it went towards eastern part of India, towards West Bengal, and then from there it moved to East UP, and then from Eastern UP now it's almost everywhere. From southern India also it has moved upwards towards Maharashtra, and several places are now JE has covered. So this is just a timeline how it moved from Japan to Southeast Asia, as well as through China to different places. Even some parts of Australia are also affected. So it's mostly confined to Asian countries, except maybe a couple of one report from Africa and few reports from Australia. So almost 26 countries they are affected, with Southeast Asian countries playing a major role in the occurrence, and they are a huge population is under risk, and large countries you can see from Asian region, they have reports of Japanese encephalitis. Globally, it has a huge impact because its fatality rate is quite high. And over the years, millions of deaths have been reported. Not only fatality, but it also has a severe sequelae. And because of that sequelae, there are disorders which the children, they remain throughout life, those neurological, cognitive, motor disorders. And these disabilities also account for a huge numbers. Millions of disabilities are there, with large number of daily. The disability adjusted life years lost is also huge. It goes into almost millions. Throughout world, very recent estimates, they suggest, it was a paper which has come very recently in 2020. So it says that almost about 100,000 cases they are reported all over the world, with almost 25% of case fatality rates. Coming to the virus, it's a flavivirus with a positive sense single-stranded RNA enveloped virus, and it clusters with other flaviviruses like yellow fever, dengue, and it forms one cluster. Here you can see here Japanese encephalitis virus, which forms a cluster with all other flaviviruses, which are mosquito borne, whereas tick-borne viruses and other Flaviviridae genus like pestiviruses, they are very distinct from this virus. But because of this clustering with mosquito-borne viruses, it also have a cross reaction with other viruses. There is only one single serotype of this virus, but 5 genotypes have been reported all over the world. And India was having till very recent times genotype 3, and it was the only circulating genotype in India. But from 2009 onwards, we now have a few reports coming out of genotype 1 also coming into India from northern part as well as eastern part of India. As I was telling you, Southeast Asian countries, they form almost, they are the hub of the Japanese encephalitis, and almost all genotypes are available in the Southeast Asian countries. Uh, Only one report outside Asia has been reported from G, and that is the only exception there. Then transmission cycle, many of us, we know that pigs, they are the amplifier host, and that cycle plays a very important role in transmitting this disease to human being. Human being as well as horses, they play dead end host. They are kind of a dead end host, as well as cattle and other animals also. Probably they are dead end host. Somebody is talking. So, and naturally, this virus is maintained in the mosquito bird cycle, and this plays a very important role in maintaining this virus in nature. Pigs, they just are one of the intermediaries and amplifying host, and then from pigs, it spillovers to human. From birds also sometimes spillover or infections to human are seen, but this cycle from birds to human is relatively rare because there are certain mosquitoes which are ornithophilic, and they keep on biting. Their preference for biting is for birds rather than to human being, and only occasionally this cycle comes. But when it spills over from birds to the animals, particularly pig, and from pig, majority of times it is coming to human. And I was telling you that there are several determinants which are important for transmission of this Japanese encephalitis. And the important determinants can be broadly classified into environmental determinants, which has climate. So we have seen nowadays that a lot of talk of climate change. There is a lot of talk of, or we have seen also in some, there is a torrential rains, so small spells of torrential rains, which which leads into flooding, and this flooding makes available the mosquitoes a very good breeding ground. So climate change, then availability of water bodies and plants, as well as agriculture, like pig farming, how it is becoming now important, and growth in piggeries in Asian countries is quite substantial, as well as irrigated land, particularly in agriculture, rice growing. So these environmental determinants with availability of water, flooding of water, makes things a little complicated. In case of social determinants, mostly we have seen that JE has been in a rural or peri-urban areas. It has mostly been seen. Many of things are causing it, availability or rather lack of availability of healthcare infrastructure, the population dynamics, as well as population behavior in rural areas, proximity to all kinds of piggery, agricultural land. These kinds of determinants also play. And finally, biological determinants, of course, we have little discussed about virus genotype circulating. As we are coming across new genotypes in India, we will have to change strategies, probably vaccine, how it is effective. We don't know, we have to study it. Vectors, they are most important players in the dynamics of transmission. What kind of vectors, in which area, which vectors play role, and all those things. And in addition, the animal reservoirs, bird migration, which animals play role. There are reports where we have seen pigs are not present, but even then JE reports have been seen. So what all factors play role need to be elucidated. And most important part which JE life cycle or JE transmission, the two most important things are mosquitoes and pigs. They play a key role as of now, what we understand and what we have seen. In majority of cases, these play a very important role. And for coming to the mosquitoes, we know that Culecine mosquitoes, particularly Culex vishnui groups, they are one of the most key transmitters of this disease. Three important vectors in India are Culex trichiniurhynchus, Culex vishnui, and Pseudovishnui. But in India itself, we have isolated, there are reports of isolation of virus from several other species. Apart from these Culex species, there are several other Culex species as well as different genera of mosquitoes, Anopheles and Mansonia. And reports here I have shown one paper from Kerala. It's a recent paper, and it also has quite a similar finding for the isolation also. So Mansonia, can it play a role in the transmission? In addition to this, we have also worked on the mosquito population dynamics in Bareilly and adjoining area. One of my students, she worked on it. And we have also seen, apart from this, there is Culex gelidus, which is another important mosquito, which is quite abundant in that area, as well as isolations, or rather presence of viral activity is also seen in this species. So we have to again see how these mosquitoes, they play a role in transmission. Even Anopheles, there are isolation report, although we are not sure about it, but this is one of the mosquitoes which has a severe anthropophilic tendency. So its biting habit is more towards human being than the other people. So malaria is one of the examples why it is so commonly transmitted from human to human. Then various, I was talking about the ornithophilic, anthropophilic behavior of mosquito. But what is reported regarding Culex, trichiniurhynchus vishnui, and gelidus is that they have a tendency of biting to animals. That is, preference is for animal biting. They are more of a zoophilic than either anthropophilic. One experiment which was conducted or rather they have collected the information from Vietnam and other Southeast Asian countries, and they have seen that if given the preference, the biting tendency is like 60% are towards cattle, 35 to human, and 3 and 1 to poultry. So this probably led to people thinking that since it is biting cattle more, so can we have a approach of a zoo prophylaxis? That means if we can keep animals in the vicinity of humans, particularly cattle, cows, can we divert the attention of the mosquitoes towards cattle? But again, that experiment shows that no, it doesn't decrease the risk, but it increases risk. And why this happens, this study indicates that because of presence of cattle, the large number of mosquitoes are attracted from breeding ground towards these cattle. And then when it comes towards cattle, naturally they come into the vicinity of human being as well. And although it's not a preferential biting habit for them, preference rather, but they also bite the human being. So it may not be a very sound idea. That's what this report says. Another important behavioral aspect of mosquitoes that play a role in the transmission is its nature, whether it's an outdoor mosquito or whether it's an indoor mosquito, and what time it bites, whether it's a daytime biting, whether it's a nighttime biting, whether it's a evening time of biting. So these three mosquitoes of Japanese encephalitis, which play important role, they are mostly outdoor mosquitoes, and therefore and their biting preference is in the evening, dusk time. Twilight time is a preferential time of their biting. They also show a very typical behavior, that is pre-biting resting behavior. That means they do not immediately bite, but they just rest for a while. And this resting behavior on the body of a host, and this behavior is probably they have devised to avoid the attack, defensive attack, which the host animals or host usually have towards the mosquito, biting mosquitoes. So these kinds of behavior also, they are very important, their flight distance, their breeding habits. We have to understand all these transmission dynamics of JE through mosquitoes. Seasonality also a very important aspect. In northern India, since there are very high temperatures in summer, which is not conducive for this mosquito to thrive, these mosquitoes, they prefer temperatures around 30-35 degrees centigrade. So we have seen that there are two kinds of peaks in northern India. One is during the monsoon period or just after monsoon, late September, and then where abundance is huge. And during this the monsoon peak, late monsoon peak, we have most important transmitters in high numbers, Culex, Tritonio in high numbers, whereas there is another peak just after winters, just before start of summer in northern India, where this Culex quinquefasciatus, this mosquito is in more quantity, which is not a very good transmitter, although isolations of JE virus have been done from this. This is preferentially an indoor mosquito. It's an endophilic mosquito. And again, this abundance is also, we know that it's related to paddy cultivation. As I was telling you, we have done study throughout the year related to mosquito dynamics, and we have seen almost similar findings. Culex tritonuricus almost very high in numbers, but surprisingly, Culex gelidus was also in very high numbers during that period, monsoon and post-monsoon season. So probably in Bareilly and adjoining area, this also plays a vital role in transmission cycle. We have also studied one of the same student, she studied in the load of virus in mosquitoes also, and you can see here quite large amount of viruses are copy numbers are present in the virus pools of both Culex tritonuricus as well as Culex gelidus. Coming towards the dynamics of host for transmission, as I was telling you that main natural reservoirs are the ardite birds, those swamp birds, pond herons and egrets. They keep on maintaining virus in the mosquito bird cycle. And pigs, they act as an amplifier host, whereas horse, human, they are dead-end host. Other animals as well as birds, reptiles, they have been shown to have a positivity, seropositivity. One of the papers also from Kerala indicates a very high positivity in ducks. But we need to study more and more on these other hosts because in some cases, in absence of pigs also, they have shown present the virus JE cases. So whether they play any role in this, we need to explore it. As far as pigs are concerned, it shows a very high natural infection rate, very high titers as well. I'll show in the next slide. As we have seen that those mosquito vectors, they are zoophilic, so they can readily feed on the swines, as well as because of a large litter size, we have a fresh susceptible pig hosts available for continuous amplification of the Japanese encephalitis virus. Not many pigs are susceptible, and only pregnant sows, they may show sometimes symptoms related to all kinds of stillbirths and death and mummification of fetus and so on and so forth. And in bulls, sometimes there are reports of infertility. Regarding the amplifying host role, the copy numbers of JE virus should be in sufficient numbers as well as for sufficient number of days. So it's almost for 4 days viremia lasts, and a large number of copies are available, up to 10 to the power 9, 10 to the power 7. Two different studies have indicated a large number of copies are available for transmission from the pigs. We can also use this as one of the important sentinel animals. We can forecast JE outbreak. We can be prepared for outbreak of JE in areas by checking the viral activity, seroconversion in pigs. And there are very good correlation studies available where pig seropositivity and outbreaks are very well correlated. And if we can take timely action in this situation, we can always reduce the number of deaths in human or control the cases in human. But for that, we need to have a sound serosurveillance in swines. We need to, because we have a large rural population who are having close proximity to pigs, they are rearing pigs. So for them, it is becoming increasingly important source of livelihood. So we have to have a good serosurveillance. And for serosurveillance, we need good diagnostics, which was not present in India when we started work way back in 2002-3. So we started developing the diagnostics first, because indigenous diagnostics HA, HI were there, but getting antigen was a problem. So we initially developed killed whole viral antigen ELISA. But since we had to handle virus, a large amount of live virus has to be handled, then kill it, and then it was not advisable. So we shifted to recombinant proteins, and a couple of my students, they worked on the recombinant. Initially started with E protein, then we shifted to NS1 protein, and Dr. Himani, she worked on NS1 protein, and this ELISA was later on patent. We have submitted or filed a patent application for this ELISA. Now this ELISA kit has been released by ICR, and now this ELISA kit is being extensively used by Dr. Himani, who is now working there. I have left IVRI 5 years back, so she has taken over the mantle. She is working there as a scientist, and this extensive validation work in inter-laboratory, inter-institutional, intra-institutional, all kinds of validation studies were there. Very high sensitivity as well as specificity of this test was observed. So with this test, we are now getting a large number of samples, and during that period also a huge number of samples were screened from across the India, from different parts of India. Almost 3,000 samples were screened before this kit was launched for the, or rather it was released by ICR. So, and you can see here very high seropositivity can be observed in different areas. Southern India, very high seropositivity. Madhya Pradesh, till very recent times, there were no reports. And when you see the map of JE cases in India, uh, till now, you can see that Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, and Rajasthan, they are still not having in the map the dots for the JE. But we have seen in swines a very high seropositivity in central part as well as northeastern part of the country. Same different state-wise, the same thing has been depicted. So as you can see here, southern part of India, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, very high prevalence. Even Maharashtra, we are getting a large number of positivity in swines. In the northeastern, large number of cases nowadays coming from the northeastern region, as well as Odisha is becoming a new emerging hotspot. Uh, Cases have started coming from the tribal areas of Malkangiri and all from Odisha. So newer, as I was telling you, it's a established disease in case of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar area, then re-emerging disease in case of West Bengal, northeastern region, as well as southern India, and emerging in the new pockets of Orissa and Madhya Pradesh. Uh, but IgG ELISA itself will not suffice purpose. It will give only activity of virus in pigs. It won't tell about the active infection, whether it's a recent infection or not. It will not be able to tell. So Dr. Himani continued that work, and this work was carried out by her after I left that place, and she continued with this and developed our indigenous IgM ELISA, which was last year released by ICR in one of the functions and as an initiative of Make in India kit. And now this also has a very high diagnostic specificity and sensitivity. And this kit also, she has tested a large number of samples, almost 2,500 samples have been tested through this kit. And you can see here very quite a substantial number, almost 18% active cases have been observed. And as I was telling you, Odisha, the number of active cases, they are quite high, and recent activity is more in the Odisha region. And in addition to those diagnostics, several other students, they have worked on some field diagnostics. So few studies we have conducted on latex agglutination test, lateral flow assay. Dr. Himani, she worked on it, and then also dipstick assay. We have expanded our like host range from only pigs to horses also. So now she has taken up work on the horses and its diagnostics for horses as well as the disease dynamics in horses. One of the another interesting aspect of Japanese encephalitis, till date we know that only vectors are important in transmitters, but one study came in 2016 where they have shown that there is a possibility of vector-free transmission, and there is a persistence of virus in the pigs, and it is then transmitted in a nasal tract. They have observed, demonstrated presence of virus, and this in the absence of arthropod vector also, they have shown that in a closed vicinity the transmission occurs, and they have shown tonsils to be important site for replication of virus. And another important feature is that even the presence of high levels of neutralizing antibodies were there, the virus persisted almost for 25 days. Similar kind of work was conducted by Dr. Chetan, who is working as a scientist at ICR research complex in Goa. He was also in IVRI as a PhD scholar. So he continued his work, and he has seen in one of the farms the dynamics of JE antibodies vis-a-vis isolation through RT-PCR from blood as well as nasal tract. So here the red zone indicates the presence of antibodies which we have seen through the ELISA, which has been developed by us, IgG ELISA. And here you can see the positivity, blood PCR positivity, and N-PCR positivity is nasal PCR positivity. So in spite of presence of antibodies, the virus is still persisting in the body. How it persists, where it persists, and how it plays role in transmission dynamics, we need to again do further studies. In horses, I'm not going into details. It causes encephalitis, and deaths are reported in horses. In other animals, there are reports, as I was telling you, seropositivity by different tests like neutralization, HI, and all kinds of tests. They have been done. They have been done in cattle, buffalo, pigs, dogs, ducks, other birds, and quite a substantial seropositivity has been reported, but its role is still to be elucidated. In case of humans, again, in northern India, because of its typical vector behavior and vector abundance, mostly it's a monsoon and post-monsoon in the form of outbreaks. Whereas in southern India, because temperatures are around 35 throughout the year, except maybe few couple of months in the summer, usually mosquitoes are present almost every time, and then the cases occur sporadic throughout year. So this is a typical endemic zone throughout the world, the northern part, whereas the tropical southern part of the Asian countries as well as India, it's endemic because of conducive temperatures and vector biology. In human cases are increasing for last few years. As I was telling you, there are cases increasing in numbers from different parts of India. There is an increasing trend. Initially, we were getting cases only from the Bihar and UP. Large number of headlines in newspaper used to come from the West Bengal, UP. And now more and more cases, they are coming up from the northeastern region, from Malkangiri, Odisha. Last 2-3 years, large outbreaks are happening from Kerala also. Last year also, there are increased number of cases which were seen in 2019. So the increasing number of cases coupled with the severe sequelae and high mortality rate makes this disease very important for the attention for the health community. Although there are large number of cases which are asymptomatic, but those which show symptoms, there is quite a substantial case fatality, quite a substantial motor deficit or cognitive and language impairment. So very important in terms of health outcomes. Disease, we know and we have learned that it is mainly children. Disease of children between 3 to 15 years are more susceptible. But recent studies in different parts of India, as well as recent outbreaks from West Bengal, Assam, even few cases from Kerala and Maharashtra 2011 onwards, most of the adults are affecting. And this is one study from Tertiary Care Hospital in Kerala, from Alappuzha. They are telling that those patients above 50 years were especially susceptible, and more number of deaths were seen in this. Again, here the attack rates, male to female ratio, they say that there is a skewed attack rate in male towards male. But this again has a bearing on the behavior, because children in during evening times, they go and play outside, and those mosquitoes are exophilic, they remain outside. So more number of male children, they are affected, or they are exposed to the bite of mosquito, therefore this skewed ratio is there. Otherwise there is no kind of a virus, or mosquito has no preference for the male or female. So we have seen different determinants for transmission cycle. So definitely the same determinants, we can exploit them for control measures as well. So we can go for management of the determinants which are conducive for transmission of Japanese encephalitis through environment. So all kinds of managemental practices on pig farms, agriculture irrigations, and water bodies, we can go for that, as well as social determinants like education, healthcare, availability, poverty, although it still is related to housing structure and all. So that also plays important role because of close proximity with animals. This also can be addressed, and one of the most important thing is vaccines. So vaccine for human as well as pig. Vector control, of course, there are issues with it, and although we try whatever it may be, vectors still they find out the ways to come out of those measures. So vaccines are most important. Vaccines for human are the best ways to prevent disease. Vaccines for animal, for horses, can protect them from the clinical illness, and in case of pigs, it will impact on the virus amplification and thereby transmission dynamics of the virus. In case of animals, we have inactivated vaccines available, not in India, but abroad. They have tried, and they have substantially reduced in Korea, in China, in Japan, a number of cases through pig vaccination. But little drawback in our place is because of cost and high turnover. As I was telling you, that litter size is large, so newborn piglets, they keep coming, and we need to have a regular vaccination, which is very difficult. Plus there may be few effects of maternal antibodies also, so we have to work on this. There were a few previously available vaccines, now no longer available. But one of the old vaccine which is still in the use is the live attenuated SA14-14-2, which is a live vaccine giving extensively good protection, very long protection. They say that it is for lifelong, but reports have said that almost 13, 15 years there is no problem and protection has been observed. But nowadays, newer vaccines that have come into market in India, which are inactivated cells from different strains of JE virus, they are available commercially. And this Indian Pediatric Association, IAP, Indian Association for Pediatricians, they have also recommended its use in endemic areas, but not for a routine use. All three vaccines are available in India. Previously, we used to import SA14-14-2 vaccine from China, but now it is available. And here some dosage at what time it has to be given, I have given. So all vaccines can be used, and they have been reported to give good protection. Because of importance of JE and particularly AES and acute encephalitic syndrome, of which JE is a very important component. There is a national program on prevention and control of JE, where JE surveillance in case of human, then sentinel animal surveillance in pigs, birds has to be taken up, as well as entomological surveillance. The vector-borne disease control program, they are already taking up this part. In addition to malaria, they are also concentrating on JE. But we in veterinary universities, institutions, colleges, research organizations, we also need to focus on different aspects of particularly related to animal as well as entomological studies in India. And finally, as we know, everybody needs to come together to tackle this problem, because everything plays role into dynamics of this disease transmission. Environment, human, animal, everybody has a role. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
I'm very thankful to Dr. Kiran for giving us such a wonderful talk on JE. Dr. Kiran has covered almost all the aspects of JE, right from the etiological agent to the disease transmission dynamics, then the host range, and the vaccination and the control program which is ongoing in India for the prevention and control of the Japanese encephalitis. So I'm thankful to Dr. Kiran for giving us such a wonderful talk with the covering all aspects. And the presentation slides were really very interesting. They were very beautiful, and they were very attractive, sir.
Thank you very
So
much,
now-
Dr. Bedi. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. So now I have covered this session to co-chair Dr. Pankaj Dhaka to conduct the discussion part of this session. And I encourage the students especially to please ask sir and take advantage of his expertise in the JE in India. Thank you. Dr. Pankaj Dhaka, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Kiran sir, for giving a comprehensive insight on this important topic. And it all remain a pleasure to hear you as a student, sir. And sir has covered all the epidemiological aspect of the disease, including diagnostic, which recently IgM ELISA has been developed under the leadership of Dr. Kiran sir. So now I participants to take part in healthy discussion and should take advantage of the expertise of Dr. Kiran sir. So please, discussion is open.
Thank you, Dr. Pankaj. Nice words.
Dr. Irshad, could you please convey how students can ask questions?
Okay.
There is no
Yeah,
question
Dr. Bedi.
seems to be in chat box.
Students can ask question directly by unmuting your microphone, or you can type your questions in the chat box.
Yes, Dr. Irshad, there is one
Yeah.
question which has come in the chat box.
Yes, Dr. Manoj, yes.
Yeah, when can we have a vaccine for JE in pigs? There is work which has been going on in IVRI. One in virus which was isolated from one of the in IVRI itself, and they have started working on this inactivated vaccine. But I'm not sure how far this work has gone. But commercially, there are available vaccines in other countries, but India, we don't know when it will come.
Dr. Manoj, can you ask directly? The question from Manoj sir: human to human transmission possible if in close vicinity through nasal secretion?
No. Till date, there are no reports available from human to human transmission. Even in the close vicinity, even if they are away, even there is a mosquito population abundance, they are reported to be dead-end hosts. And no transmission has been reported because viremia is not sufficient for vectors to catch up and then transmit to others.
Dr. Narayanan SB, please ask directly.
So, good morning, sir.
Morning, morning.
So, what should be the criteria in selecting the sentinels for the sampling in both domestic and wild pigs?
Usually domestic pigs which are in the vicinity of the population where JE is reported frequently, they are good sentinels for predicting. We have worked in Gorakhpur area also where a large number of cases have happened, and we have seen in Goa as well, Dr. Chetan has worked, and we have seen that the antibody, since we worked with antibody, we have not worked with IgM ELISA at that time, it was not there with us. So 2 to 3 weeks before human spillover, we start getting infection in pigs. Of course, there can be other sentinel animals as well, because simultaneously the mosquitoes can bite other animals along with pigs. So we can observe the viral activity or seroconversion activities in other animals also, but we need to study because in different places there will be different disease dynamics, transmission dynamics. Everywhere we have to just check, see what is the good animal for sentinel studies.
Sir, what will be the occurrence in wild pigs, wild boars?
Nobody has studied. It may be there as a seroconversion, it may be there, but there are no studies available. And since they are away from the habitat, probably they may not pose any threat to human transmission as well as.
Kerala, we are having so many human animal conflicts with the wild boars, agriculture things.
So maybe you can, in
Yes,
your state, it's a unique thing. So maybe you can.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pravida CP. Question from Pravida, sir. Is there any specific mechanism responsible for persistence of virus in pig?
There are very few available reports about the even pathogenicity of JE virus, how it causes pathogenicity, how it goes and transmits to the what you call through blood-brain barrier to the brain. Very few host pathogen interaction studies are being done. But one of the postulates which they say that it goes into macrophages and stays in the macrophages, and thereby it persists there. So that is one of the probable persistence mechanism. Another persistence mechanism, as that study from the no vector transmission, which was done in 2016, that is without vector transmission, they also stated that it goes into tonsils and it remains there, tonsils, and it replicates there, it persists there. So somehow it evades the immune mechanism and remains in the immune cell itself and multiplies, and then again maybe coming out. We need to study these aspects of pathogenicity and persistence.
There is another question that is similar only. Sir, in the report you have shown where vector-free transmission occurred. What was the actual route of transmission?
Nobody has elucidated what was actual regarding the vector-free transmission. That particular paper, okay, that particular paper, it's a nasal transmission. So nasal secretions led to transmission from one animal to another.
Dr. Masianna HM, can you ask directly? The question is, sir, these zoonotic diseases are highly neglected in the field conditions. So as a veterinarian, how I should bring the solution by collaborate with the medical people?
So everybody is trying for this collaboration, right, for last several years. Somehow it is not happening, but nowadays government is taking initiative, and COVID, it has come as a blessing in disguise for us in terms of collaborations, and everybody is now thinking of One Health, and all medical, veterinary, environmentalists, they are collaborating with each other. So hopefully it will soon become a reality, at least in our country. And your state is one of the leaders, Kerala, who has taken the lead, and last 3-4 years regularly organizing collaborative efforts for medical and veterinarian under One Health umbrella.
Another question is, accidental ingestion of mosquitoes can cause disease?
No. No oral transmission.
Dr. Hema Persis, can you ask directly? Whether hibernating hosts are any role in JE infection in India? That is the question.
Hibernating host, nobody has explored any hibernating, because host in terms of domestic animal, there is no kind of a hibernation of virus into the any other animal like pig, cattle, because pigs amplify, transmit, and then they become clear of these viruses after a few. But hibernation happens in mostly the birds, those swam birds. They keep on maintaining this, but how they do it, role, it's still unclear.
Another question from Dr. David. Sir, pigs are known as amplifying host. How long the virus remain in the pig, and is it necessary to cull the pigs during JE outbreak in a particular area?
Virus can persist for a longer period, but viremia will be only for 4 days. Between 2 to 4 days, viremia lasts. So transmission from pigs through vector usually happens during that period. But persistence may be for a longer period, as we have seen in one of the papers. Regarding culling of pigs, unless there is a compensation given by government, it becomes very difficult. The last outbreak which happened in Odisha, in Malkangiri, there were issues about pigs which were livelihood support for those tribal people. And when recommendation was given that we should all immediately segregate, cull, and give compensation, lot of issues they came. So it becomes very impractical, because mostly socially disadvantaged and poor people, they are having this pigs. So maybe vaccine in near future would be a good idea to control this disease.
I think there is no more questions, sir. Now I invite Dr. B. Sunil, sir, for a few words.
Thank you.
I think we have had a wonderful discussion on JE and its scenario in India. My thoughts on this, because as you have rightly pointed out, this has been an old disease with us, but still with a lot of gaps in maybe research and also in its control programs. Probably in between, what I feel is that we have missed out on how we could probably, suitably change our environmental situations to reduce that. Mainly what we observe in cities, especially in most of these cities which are coming up, one of the most important things now is the flooding, which you have rightly mentioned. So when cities are growing, hardly any importance is being placed how it has to be done holistically. You know, when you're talking of development, it has to be sustainable. But development for the sake of development without sustainability is going to bring in a hell a lot of issues along with it. And I feel JE is also one of the things which come into the ambit of that. So what I feel is like we need to look at the mechanisms in the animal veterinary sector or the animal husbandry sector, wherein you can think of vaccines as one of its roles. Then again, the human part, what can be done, and more importantly, vector control with the environmental part. Environmental part. When you're talking of designing new cities, bringing in people to dwell in the cities, it is going to create a lot of problems in that. And how these issues are dealt with in the major planning issues in the cities. I think this could also have a role, because previously we used to have all these vector control measures and other things going on in the cities, but hardly anything happens now. So this coupled with every year floodings and all those things are making things very difficult, especially for the city dwellers. Like, for example, JE we have, and the Lepto, which is the one which is again now the rains have started. Mumbai, our Kerala cities are also going to be flooded. So these are issues which comes up with that. So it again requires a lot of intersectoral collaboration, which we are talking of but not taking off. I just sign off with that. So thank you for a very, very, very informative and a fantastic lecture which you had with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you for giving opportunity. Thank you all, Dr. Vedi, Dr. Irsad, Dr. Pankaj. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. It is quite fascinating as well as a pleasure for me to sit again in your class along with my classmate, Dr. Pankaj. Now I invite Dr. S. Maya, Director, Academic Staff College, for a formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Irshad. Thank you so much, Kiran sir, for enlightening us on a wonderful topic with a wonderful session. That is on epidemiology of Japanese encephalitis in India. Sir, my heartfelt thanks are due to you on behalf of the organizing committee and the university. Gratitude is also extended to the chair and co-chair, Dr. Jasbir Singh Bedi and Dr. Pankaj Dhaka, for conducting the session excellently well. My heartfelt thanks to the coordinators and also the delegates for the patient listening.